It's our discussion segment. This morning, we will be taking a look again, if you ask me, at the tax issues around tax reforms. We are taking a deep dive into the complex and contentious issues of tax reform in Nigeria. The tax reform saga has been ongoing for years, with various stakeholders presenting different arguments on the best way forward. As we speak, Nigeria's tax system is facing significant challenges with a tax to GDP ratio of just 6%. Nigeria has one of the lowest tax revenues in the world. This has resulted in a significant shortfall in government revenues, making it difficult to fund essential public services and infrastructure projects. The prevailing argument in the tax reform saga can be broadly categorized into three main areas: the economic effectiveness, fairness and equity, and of course the simplification and efficiency on the one hand. Some argue that the current tax system is overly complex with multiple taxes and levies, leading to confusion and non-compliance amongst others. While on the other hand, others argue that the tax system is unfair, with certain individuals and businesses bearing a disproportionate burden. Joining us via Zoom from Kano this morning to analyze these prevailing arguments and provide expert insight, it's Professor Kabiru Dandogo, a renowned expert in taxation and accounting. Professor Dandogo has had a distinguished career in the academia and public service, serving as Commissioner of Finance in Kano and currently as a Federal Commissioner of the Tax Appeal Tribunal. Prof, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for finding time to join us on this all-important topic this morning.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, Prof. Let's start from the beginning. The current effort by the current administration, or rather the current effort by the tinubu's administration to reform our tax systems. In the introductions there, we talked about how tax to GDP ratio is at 6%, and I'm sure you are aware that of the current efforts to rebase the economy. If they do with some of the pointers that we have seen, the economic size will become even bigger, and that ratio could even drop to perhaps somewhere around 3%. Give us a sense of why we have this acute very low tax to GDP ratio. Is it a failure of our tax system to recover these taxes, or is it about corruption in the system, or is it entirely about an ineffective tax system as it is?
I think all these issues that you mentioned could be seen to be the causes of low tax to GDP ratio in the country. Taxation is being considered as the most important instrument for ensuring the achievement of sustainable development, sustainable economic development all over the world. Almost all the developed economies in the world, we can say that they are tax-based economies, meaning that they rely heavily on taxation for the development and sustaining the development of their country. And you can use tax as a basis of achieving sustainable development if the tax system is bad. And so, being a dynamic subject matter, it has to be subjected to continuous reform. So the effort the present government is making to reform the tax system is good for the system to be reformed. But then, as bills were developed or passed into law by the National Assembly, so that this process will be followed to ensure that the tax system is well reformed for it to be used as basis of achieving sustainable development. We have to make sure that we are very, very objective in developing the themselves and coming up with things that are very practicable. So when the bills were developed and sent to the National Assembly for passage into law, people began to see a lot of lapses in the bill. And a lot of things that are supposed to be in the bill that are not there. And then some things that have been carried or captured in the bill that need to be amended, so that the law, when it comes out, will be very much acceptable to people, will be very much practicable. So I think to answer your question, the reason behind the low tax GDP in the country, the reasons are many. And one of the reasons is that the system itself is not good enough. And another one is that the system as it is now is not practicable. So when you have the bill coming up for reforming the tax system, you'll be happy that, yeah, we need this reform. But then the bill should be about a system that will be very practicable, a system that will amount to generating a lot of revenue for government at all levels to execute various projects. A system that will show that when you do anything wrong in the implementation of the tax system, a lot of punishment are there, which will be very scary to government functionaries who will wish to tamper with the system. And it should be a system that will assist the country in ensuring that there is economic stabilization. So these are issues that people are expecting from the tax bills that are developed for the purpose of reforming the tax system.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for that. Now, given Nigerians' attitude towards, tax, when you mention tax or taxation, Nigerians have a problem because at the end of the day, they always complain that they don't see the dividends of it. So how can this reform be made realistic enough to convince Nigerians that we know that, like it or not, these these reforms are going to be put in place and taxation will increase so as we have the adequate amount we need vis-a-vis the GDP. But how can this be made realistic enough to function in a society like Nigeria, where we still find people evading tax?
Yeah, thank you very much. Nigeria is a country where you have very wide gap between the rich and the poor. They have and they have not. One of the function of taxation is to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. So the process of narrowing the gap must have to be considered when you are developing laws on tax system. So the problem people are seeing now is that most of the provisions in the bill are targeting the poor against the rich. So the rich are to be considered for relevant taxes. We cannot pay high taxes, relevant taxes on their income, on their gains, on their profit, on their consumption, and many other things. What effort is made to provide social amenities that both the rich and the poor will enjoy, and that's how to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. For the situation whereby you are emphasizing on taxes that will mainly affect the poor, then definitely the poor will be complaining about the provisions in the bill. Take VAT, for example. No matter how you put the issue of VAT, it will end up bothering the poor. You may say that these are exempted, these are exempted, these are exempted. But when you tax heavily the goods that are VATable, as they increase their prices in the market, those goods that are not VATable, the sellers will also increase their prices. So at the end of the day, it is the poor that will suffer. And because we have the same market for the VATable goods and non-VATable goods. So the purchasing power of the poor will be going down, while the rich are becoming richer. And so this is one of the reasons why you see most people that may understand the way the bill are designed will be very more critical of the content of the bill. Even for income tax, look at the progressive tax, the rate given, starting from 15%. So you can wonder, the person that will qualify or will graduate into into income taxable, the first rate that will be applied on that person is 15%, which is much. And that 15% will reduce greatly the purchasing power of people. That is, the disposable income will be very low. And then as you go to the market with low disposable income, you cannot buy much. And at the end of the day, the poor also in the market, selling goods and services, they will not market. What is happening in Nigeria now is that many small businesses are closing up because of poor market. They don't have buyers of their goods and services. So they have to close business. And then as they close their own businesses, government is losing because they have to make profit before they start paying income tax. They have to sell properly because they start paying capital gain tax. And you know that. So the complaint that people are making now is that the bill as they are not making, they have not made strong position that will actually close the gap between the rich and the poor, or narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. When you take, I did a study on all the content of the bill. I couldn't see taxes that many countries that we see as the developed economy are using for the taxing of the rich. You cannot see any luxury taxes there, no transaction taxes. Even property tax has not been emphasized greatly in the bill. These are taxes that are being imposed on the rich with the view to collecting much money that could be used by the government in providing social amenities for both the poor and the rich to enjoy. And then the poor, when they get this benefit, they will also be paying what is called presumptive tax rather than conventional tax. So at the end of the day, you will see that you are allowing the system to grow up voluntary compliant taxpayers. But as it is now, more people will be trying as much as possible to avoid tax. And then that gap between the rich and the poor cannot be narrowed by what has been provided in the bill now.
Prof, thank you for this perspective. I would like to get your view on what you think about the current reforms. I know you've mentioned a bit of how your study indicates that the poor is going to suffer more body. My question really is, do you think we are doing too much at the same time? Because it appears that the conversation around VAT, which is just an aspect of the entire reforms, has dominated the airways far much more than what that reform is saying in the broader area of other kind of taxes. As we did with the petroleum industry bill that was in the Senate for more than a decade, do you think we should stagger these reforms, take some aspects, deal with them, have them pass, begin implementation, while we try to broaden the conversation around those areas of disagreement, and where we reach an appreciable number of people who are now comfortable, we can then move on to the level of bills and then implementation? How do you think we should progress from all of the things that have been said about these reforms?
Yeah, you say tax system is going to be implemented in a segregated manner. It has to be implemented as a whole. Everybody should be brought into it. Both the conventional taxpayers and presumptive taxpayers should all be carried along. And then all that is required is for fairness to be demonstrated in the provisions of the law on the taxing system and the collection of the revenue, the utilization of the tax revenue, the accountability required of those holding position of responsibility for the utilization of the revenue. So I think what majority of the people are calling for is that the content of the bill needs some refinement, some amendment to be made on some of the issues there, some deletion to be made, some of the issues that don't need to be there to be deleted, and then many other issues that are not in the bill to be brought into the bill. And then when the National Assembly take care of this adjustment, they can go ahead to pass the bill into law. And I'm sure majority of the people will accept the content. So what is required is for the drafter of the bill or maybe the National Assembly to subject the content of the bill to critical analysis in 3 ways. One, items that need amendment should be amended. Items or sections that need to be removed should be deleted. And then they have to incorporate issues that are outside the bill now, which are very, very relevant, particularly taxing on the rich. They need to be captured strongly in that bill. And of course, finally, we have to emphasize on the need for effective utilization of the revenue that will be generated from the taxes and other sources of income, so that adequate social amenities are provided for everybody to enjoy.
All right.
So that developmental issues are taken care of for the country to achieve sustainable development. And that is how the tax to GDP will go up. So if things like this are done, I think there will be no need for disaggregating maybe the process of approving the bills. They are all related. All the 4 bills are related. They are linked. They are interlinked. So we cannot say that take care of this, or take care of that. They have to be taken as a whole. So all that is needed is for the appropriate authority to take these measures.
All right.
And then we have a system that we'll be proud of. And then as we are part of the system, we all show commitment in ensuring that the system succeeds.
All right, Prof. A quick follow-up to that question. I'm sure you are also aware that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Planning Commission did a memo that was widely reported in the media about how they think that the whole conversation around derivation or sharing formula for VAT and the rest are completely misplaced, given that they have the constitutional power to deal with the issues of derivation as provided for by the Constitution. So do you think that we seem to be discussing this issue in the wrong realms, given that you are a member of the tax tribunal? Should we allow the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Planning Commission determine what is a fair and equitable way of sharing nationally collectible revenues?
Yeah, I think I saw the write-off, and I found it as a very unfortunate development for drafters of the bill to ignore that provision of the Constitution and then come up with a sharing formula for whatever reason, particularly this VAT revenue. So since the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and System Commission have cried out that putting them aside to come up with VAT revenue sharing formula and the bill is against the provision of the law. So we need to respect it. We need to respect the provisions of the law. And the government is also constituted by the provisions of the law. So since this issue is there, and they have mentioned the section of the law that says that they are the agency that has been empowered by the Constitution to develop formula or to suggest formula for sharing whatever revenue going into the center. So we need to respect that. So I am against the position of the drafters of the bill coming up with any formula for sharing centrally generated or federally generated revenue. Since an agency has been established by the Constitution and vested with the power to do that, so they should be allowed to do their work.
Thank you very much, Prof, for sharing that wonderful perspective with us on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and do have a great day ahead.